Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we get set for our 19th race of the second season of the NNSCRA Duracell Cup Series. 8 races, including today, remain in the regular season before we determine the 16 drivers that will battle it out in this season's playoffs, chase for the championship, whatever you want to call it. And we continue it on here today with the run of the Lennox Industrial Tools 301 at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Last year, it was the hometown boy, Austin the Plant, getting it done in front of his home crowd, picking up his first win of his career. He has yet to go back to victory lane since that very ecstatic day. But we have had, so far this season, 8 different drivers go to victory lane for the first time in their Duracell Cup Series career, including last week. We saw Matt Haas take his first checkered flag at the Chicago Motor Speedway, and it definitely propelled him through the standings as well. He was 23rd in points going into that race. He is now 12th in the standings, jumped up 11 spots because of that victory. So, even this late in the season, it's amazing what a victory will do to propel you through the points. I mean, the point standings are still really close. First to 36th is 180 points. That's about 4.5 race separation. Still plenty of time for anybody, regardless of whether they're in the top 30 or outside the top 30. There's still so much time for opportunities for drivers to still make last-minute bids to get into the playoffs. Now, we also should mention as well that a couple of drivers did manage to work their way into the top 30 in the points after last week. Jose Mills jumped up 6 spots to 28th. Our pole sitter here today, Kyle Matthews, on the other hand, he dropped from 30th to 32nd. So he's got to get himself back in the top 30 in points for his Phoenix win to count towards a playoff position. And look who's on the outside of the front row. Chris Dollerton finished top 10 2 weeks ago at Kansas. Last week, brought it home, I think it was 6th place at Chicago Motor Speedway. He's trying to get himself up there in the points. He's also trying to find victory lane. But here's the thing. With him and Wyatt Quayle, both of them had great runs last week in the top 10 at Chicago Motor Speedway. Neither one gained a spot in points. That's just how far down they have fallen, and now they really have to pick themselves up by the bootstraps if they're going to get themselves into contention back in the top 30 in points and get themselves victories to get into this season's playoffs. Of course, Dollerton trying to defend his championship from last year. Row 2, you got a couple of hopefuls there. You've got Cody Lamas. He was really close to winning this season. Came up about, 7/10 of a mile short in the Coke 600. Benjamin Miles passed him on the back straightaway of the final lap to take that checkered flag. And you got Carter Friesen, who hasn't won since the very first Duracell Cup Series race, the Season 1 Daytona 500. He comes into this race second in the point standings, does Friesen, so it's not like he's had a horrible year, but he's still trying to find victory lane. Without further ado, let's go down trackside, get those most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
53 laps of racing here today at New Hampshire. This will certainly be a wild one, as we had a great race here last year, and hoping we are going to have more of the same here in Season 2. Let's give you your top 10. The points coming into this race is Matt McIntyre. The points lead continues to grow. Another top 10. Well, actually, no, he finished outside the top 10 around 12th last week, but still had a good performance. 42 points in hand over a tie for second between Carter Friesen and Benjamin Miles. Jordan Lopez is 4th. Zach Rogers in 5th. Carson Gum, first time we've seen a little bit of a slip out of him. He's dropped down to 6th. Mitchell Collins currently in 7th, which I'm shocked that he's still there after he had a bad run last week. Ryan Acosta, who still continues the free fall, he's in 8th. Austin the Plant, defending winner of this race, he's 9th. And Trey Wright completes the top 10. We'll give you what your playoff standings would look like in just a moment. But the pace car is ready to make the left-hand turn to pit road, and Kyle Matthews and Chris Dollerton are ready to get us underway. Both were playoff contenders last year. Right now, they would not be in playoff spots. The green flag's in the air. Let's roll at New Hampshire. You can just hear them playing with the throttle. They're neither line able to get back to the gas that quickly, but it looks like the outside line might work for Dollarton. And he'll get the race lead away from Kyle Matthews. Now Carter Friesen up the outside, trying to take second place away. So Dollarton to the point. Chris Dollarton finished 4th here last year. It was really the second half of the regular season where Chris Dollarton came alive, got the win at Fuel Motorsports Park before the All-Star break, and then after the All-Star break was able to work his way all the way up inside the top 10 in points after spending most of the first half of the regular season outside the top 30 in standings. So, you know, kind of almost a sense of deja vu here in Season 2. As Cody Lamas made it 3 wide for second, backs out of it. Now it's Matthews and Friesen who will battle side by side for that position. This all going on currently behind the Dr. Pepper Ford. As we watch this battle for second, right now your playoffs would look like this coming into this race. Carson Gum and Michael Norman, both inside the top 30 in points, 2-time winners, would be tied for the number 1 seed. They'd be joined by Ward 1-time winners Matt McIntyre, Benjamin Miles, Jordan Lopez, Zach Rogers, Trey Wright, Dylan Young, Matt Haas, Ryan Brommer, Cole Baker, all of which I should mention are up inside the top 15 in points. Johnny Gardner and Jose Mills right now. They would be in the playoffs via victories. That is 13 drivers right there that I named off, which means right now only 3 spots are open for drivers to make it in via points. Those spots currently would be held by Carter Friesen, Mitchell Collins, and Ryan Acosta, who is only 7 points ahead of Austin LaPlante. Now, that whole grid could change because Kyle Matthews, you see there, is 32nd in points, 5 points behind the cut line. So if he moves back into the top 30 in points, he would have a playoff spot. And Alexander Rowe comes into this race only 15 points behind the cut line, 35th in points, so he could move in the top 30 in points as well. Battle for the lead up front. Chris Dollarton and Carter Friesen. Carter Friesen, a Canadian. And I would say this is maybe the farthest north we get of a racetrack. I don't know where Michigan, where in Michigan, location-wise, Michigan International Raceway is. I don't know if it's up north or in the south. But definitely with New Hampshire being up here in the northeast, this has got to be at least somewhat the closest we get to Canada. So it could technically, I guess, be a home race for the driver of the 37. I just realized as well that I didn't have the ticker up there at the top, so I apologize for that. Trey Wright currently in third. This is a great run for him. Trey Wright been very quiet this season after getting the win in the second race of the year at Manassas. And a couple of weeks ago, he worked his way back up into the top 10 in points. I think it was after Dover. And he's pretty much hung around 9th, 10th place the last 2 or 3 weeks. So do not count him out. We haven't seen the dominance out of Blue Oval Automotive like we saw last year. But all 3 of their drivers have gone to victory lane, and right now all 3 of them would be in playoff spots if the postseason were to start now. This is interesting. Back here in 5th and 6th, we weren't able to really broadcast it, but it was shown on the NNSCRA split cam last week at Chicago Motor Speedway. Teammates got together. Cody Lamas getting into his teammate Matthew Rodriguez's left rear quarter panel, spun him around off turn 2. It didn't bring out a caution. And Matthew Rodriguez would go on to finish that race. I think it was around the 38th position. Cody Lamas would finish up inside the top 20. So you got to wonder if that's in the back of their minds right now. Matthew Rodriguez, a former winner, but last year during the playoffs, that was at Arizona, Cody Lamas, we already documented, was so close to picking up that victory in the Coke 600, but came up just half a lap short. Mentioned about Carson Gum last week. It was probably the first time in a long time that he was a non-factor in a race. And it dropped him 3 spots in the point standings as well. But the 2-time winner right now in the 7th spot. Good run for him. And Dylan Young. Tell you what, Dylan Young last couple of weeks has been really good. Our Darlington winner had a great run last week at Chicago Motor Speedway. jumped up to 11th in points, and running up here in the top 10, his teammate right there behind him, Adam Garcia, who finished last car in the lead lap last week. And that was down around the 37th, 38th position, so a good run for him. Another driver that struggled last week, Marcus Sacchi right now. This is actually the battle for second highest rookie on track. Cody Lamas currently the highest, running in 5th. But Marcus Sacchi finished a lap down last week at Chicago Motor Speedway. Casey Nanico took Rookie of the Race as he finished in the top 10, having a good run here today as well. His teammate not too far behind him there, Ryan Butcher in the 78. There's Jessica Shelton, the Boxy Mobile, back again here. She looked like she was going to have a good run last week, but then kind of faded back after the round of pit stops as we are 3 wide back here for position. Alexander Rowe, Jose Mills, Michael Norman, all former winners this season. Norman winning the 2 dirt tracks this year at Springfield and Fuel Motorsports Park. Jose Mills winning at Bristol, and Alexander Rowe, the only rookie to win so far this season, at Pikes Peak. And he's right in front of his teammate, Austin LaPlante, the defending winner of this race, who right now is kind of boxed in. You got the points leader, Matt McIntyre, there as well, and also Benny Watson in the 75, who finished 3rd last week. With that 3rd place run, Benny Watson jumped up 6 spots in the standings, up to 20th. So we'll see if Benny Watson can get something done here today at New Hampshire. Right behind him, you see Seth Cole. He's piloting the new number. I mentioned last week that Seth Cole announced he was moving from the 72 to the 25 for his number out of Backmarker Motorsports, and so there you see it. As Charles Sanford ducks low on Levi McIntyre. Looks like LaPlante finally getting to the bottom of the racetrack, no longer boxed in there, as the defending winner right now is in the 23rd position. Meanwhile, the battle up front. Oh, we got trouble! Up and over Adam Garcia, and there's more involved. Marcus Sacchi, Shelton, Mills, the points leader, Matt McIntyre. Derek Hamill spun on the apron. And the caution will wave for the first time here today at New Hampshire. A big wreck, and that was up just around, I think it was like the 7th or 8th position. A lot of drivers in that were having good runs. Dylan Young, Keith Batson, and Adam Garcia. And I will be very interested to see what happened there. So Chris Dollerton, we were going to jump up here to the front because there was only about a 1/10 of a second between Dollerton and Friesen. Friesen was not letting Chris Dollerton get away, and now that's a moot point, and we are going to see drivers hit pit road. We got a scoring error back here. I think Carter Friesen beat Trey Wright to the line, and now they're having an issue figuring out who is where. Looks like they will all come to pit road, though, so it'll be rather spread out, and that big gap will probably allow Chris Dollerton to get off pit road first, undoubtedly. Everybody's coming down. Nobody is staying out. And is it a 4-tire stop? It is. Which does not surprise me. New Hampshire is a very low-banked racetrack, which means that in these corners you're going to be using up a lot of tire rubber. And all these drivers have about 15, 16 laps on their Goodyears. So Chris Dollerton is going to get off pit road with the race lead still. Marcus Sacchi came out ahead of him. I believe he's on the tail end of the lead lap, and he will probably restart behind the pace car, but ahead of Chris Dollerton. Jose Mills also stayed out. I don't know if he was on the lead lap or not. I think he was. I think he stayed out to try and lead a lap. I don't know if he's going to be able to or not. It all depends on where his pit stall is. If it's before the start-finish line, he may get the bonus point for leading this lap. Let's see who gets the lap led. Will it be the 98? He crossed the line and... nope, he was a lap down. So that was not strategy for staying out to lead a lap. That was he had to wait the next lap around to pit because he was a lap machine. So it is indeed going to be Marcus Sacchi starting ahead of Chris Dollerton. This will make it a very interesting restart here. But for now, let's go back and see what happened to bring out the caution for the first time here today at New Hampshire. Well, I mentioned the fact I thought this was up near the front. This was a battle for the 8th position. Teammates here, Dylan Young and Adam Garcia, going into turn 3. So let's see what happens. Oh, Keith Batson was the one that started it. He got a real deep entry into the corner. Hooks Adam Garcia in the right rear quarter panel and then sends Garcia up into his teammate Dylan Young. And you see the 12 flipping upside down. Nowhere for Marcus Sacchi to go. Jessica Shelton gets a piece of it there. And you're going to see on the right side of your screen in a moment, Matt McIntyre. You saw Jose Mills get a piece right there. And there is Matt McIntyre getting involved. And they stacked up behind them. Derek Hamill got turned around off the nose of Jordan Lopez. And I think Zach Rogers may have run to the back of the 38. He got a little bit of damage on his dodge. See everybody else here cutting through the grass to get through. So there were multiple cars involved in this one and a flip, and it happened up at the front of the field inside of the top 10. That is a tough break there for Batson, Young, and Garcia, who all were looking like they were going to have very strong race cars here today. And now they find themselves damaged, and I think this is probably going to take at least Garcia, maybe a couple of others, out of this race. We'll talk about being boxed in on a restart. Chris Dollerton's going to have 2 damaged machines to have to get around. Marcus Sacchi will be restarting ahead of him. And Jose Mills, 1 lap down, will be restarting ahead of him on the low line. So where is Dollerton going to go when the green flag comes back out? He's got Trey Wright behind him, also Carter Friesen, Carson Gum, Jesse Turner now up in the top 5, with Cody Lamas, Matthew Rodriguez, Casey Nanica, Wyatt Quayle, and Johnny Gardner. That is your top 10. A lot of Toyotas there from 6th down through 10th. 39 cars will take the green for this restart, 38 of them on the lead lap, 1 car out of the race, that being Adam Garcia. So another tough day for Garcia, who struggled last week as well at Chicago Motor Speedway. And here we go, Trey Wright to the bottom of the racetrack on Dollerton. But now he's got the 98 in front of him, his teammate, possibly holding him up. Or does he? Look at this. Jose Mills going to be a good teammate. He's going to hold up Chris Dollerton and move his teammate, Trey Wright, to the lead. So team orders or not, Trey Wright to the top position. Battle will now be for 2nd place between Carter Friesen and Chris Dollerton. And Dollerton's still stuck behind that 98 car, and I think Chris is getting pretty heated in that helmet right now because he realizes what just happened to him. These cars bouncing down the back straightaway. That's certainly got to hurt your entry going into a corner when your car is not even touching the ground. Dollerton finally gets back down to the inside line, but he's in 3rd. The damage has been done. Trey Wright now trying to get around Marcus Sacchi. So that way he can open up a little bit of distance between himself and 2nd place Carter Friesen. He will succeed in doing so. So Trey Wright firmly in control of the lead. Carter Friesen now in 2nd. Chris Dollerton 3rd. These two know each other very well, because it was only 1 point that separated these two with the championship on the line last year. Carter Friesen came out on the losing end of that. Dollerton, obviously, the eventual champion, who's moved his way up here into the 4th position. That's Matthew Rodriguez. Good run there for the 57, and his teammate not too far behind, Cody Lamas. Matthew Rodriguez actually was up near the top 10 in points a few weeks ago, but boy, he has free-falled since then. 34th in points coming into this one. Obviously looking to bounce back into the top 30 in points and trying to get a win as well. 3 wide back here. Johnny Gardner's making some moves. Our Dover winner trying to get another win up here in the Northeast, as he and Casey Nanico and Carson Gum were 3 wide. Wyatt Quayle right there in the 41. Had that great run last week at Chicago, but definitely needs more than that. Needs more consistent runs, and right now he's up in the top 10. Pole sitter Kyle Matthews now working his way back up towards the front as well, as he's side by side with Jesse Turner. That is for 11th. Meanwhile, as we move our way back up towards the front, you see drivers trying to get around Marcus Sacchi and Chris Dollerton Boy, he has had no luck with lap traffic. He first was held up by Jose Mills. Now he's gotten held up by Marcus Sacchi, and he's dropped back now to the 5th position as a result. Battle for 2nd. Matthew Rodriguez to the inside of Carter Friesen. Now, everyone came to pit road under that caution, but I'm going to be very curious to see if they can make it the rest of the way without coming to pit road again. There could be another pit stop in the itinerary for these drivers, as they're 3 wide back here. Well, they were. Well, they still are. It was Benny Watson I saw making the 3 wide move, and they are still 3 wide a little bit further back there. Now settling it back out. Sebastian Kukelan, I think, was the biggest loser out of all that, as he dropped from about 12th back to 15th in that exchange. And they're 3 wide behind him. Alexander Rowe, Ryan Butcher, and Jesse Turner. Turner was up inside the top 10 for the last restart, and now, after getting kicked to the high side multiple times, he's now outside the top 15. Here comes the defending race winner, Austin LaPlante. He's picked up some spots since we last looked back at him. He's now in 18th place, trying to work his way up there to the front. Boy, they really stacked up right there. Man, looked like an accordion. They all compressed. Well, Matthew Rodriguez now pretty much in control of 2nd place. Now we're going to have to watch the lap times between himself and leader Trey Wright and see if Matthew Rodriguez is closing the gap up at all. That last time by, he ran a tick slower than Trey Wright. Trey Wright ran a 31.650, Matt Rod a 6.72, so about 2/100ths slower. Let's see about this lap. Trey Wright's got nothing but clean racetrack ahead of him, so all he has to concentrate on is his lap times. This time around, Matt Rod was faster. 6.82 for Trey Wright, 6.50 for Matthew Rodriguez, as we got a battle for 3rd. Cody Lamas to the inside of Carter Friesen. There's no doubt that for Carter Friesen, 2nd in the points coming to this race, tied for 2nd with Benjamin Miles, that a win would probably lock him into the playoffs. Trey Wright, 10th in points, a 2nd victory would probably lock him into the playoffs. Cody Lamas, he's 30th in points, so it'd be kind of questionable of whether he'd be locked in with a win. And the same for Matthew Rodriguez, 34th in points, whether he'd be locked in. They would probably still be down somewhere around the danger zone and, need a couple more good finishes to build off of their victory, but, it's still possible. Johnny Gardner has brought Wyatt Quayle along with him, and we could have ourselves a battle for 5th momentarily. Gardner closing in on Chris Dallerton's back bumper. Dr. Pepper versus Monster Energy versus the Burger King. And they are actually catching, all 3 of them are catching up to this battle for 3rd. Carter Friesen and Cody Lamas, they've been going at it the last couple of laps. It's been hurting their lap times for sure and allowing Dallerton, Gardner, and Quayle to close in. How about Alexander Rowe? We talked about him and Kyle Matthews both mathematically with a shot of getting themselves back in the top 30 in points here with good runs, and right now Rowe is in 8th and Matthews in 9th, so they're doing what they got to do. Rowe, the Pikes Peak winner, and Kyle Matthews, the Phoenix winner, another track that doesn't have a heck of a lot of banking, especially over in 1 and 2, so this track a little bit similar, so not surprised to see Kyle Matthews doing well. And last week, the Wait Don't Blink driver was Zach Rogers. He popped up for a 10th place finish at Chicago Motor Speedway from out of nowhere. He's got damage. We know he got involved in that wreck back on lap 15, but that doesn't seem to have affected him at all. He's in the 13th position and trying to go for 12th on Seth Cole. Benny Watson right behind him. Well, Carter Friesen now in control of the 3rd spot. Battle will be for 4th, Cody Lamas and Chris Dallerton. Johnny Gardner and Wyatt Quayle right behind them as well in their own little teammate battle for 6th. As up towards the front, Slowly but surely, Matthew Rodriguez is closing in on Trey Wright. That last time by, he was almost a full tenth faster than the 28. He's cut down what was about a 1.7 second lead down to 1.4, and this time by cuts it down to 1.3. So he is closing. And of course, we still have the possibility of pit stops. So we can't take anything for granted yet. I was actually just looking at last year's statistics. We've only got one driver up inside the top 10 right now that finished top 10 here 1 year ago, and that's Chris Dollerton, who finished 4th. LaPlante, Norman, Qualls, Haas, Carson Gum, Jessica Shelton, Dylan Young, and Adam Garcia, none of them are up inside of the top 10 right now, and they all finished in the top 10 last year. Matthew Rodriguez, who's trying to run down Trey Wright right now, he finished last year in the 35th position. The leader, Trey Wright, he finished 28th. So both of them obviously en route for their best finishes at New Hampshire in their career. Carter Friesen there in that 3rd position. He finished 39th at this track 1 year ago. So all three of them obviously learned something last season that they were able to apply this season and are running much, much better here in Season 2. 1.2 seconds the gap from Trey Wright back to Matthew Rodriguez. Matt Rod steadily continuing to run faster lap times than Trey Wright. This time, cut it down by another 6/100ths. Trey Wright now entering into the 32-second lap times. Matt Rod still 31.981 on that last lap. We got a battle for 3rd. Well, we did. Cody Lamas and Carter Friesen were going at it. Friesen hangs on to the spot. And here comes Cody again to challenge. Alexander Rowe is now entered into this group, as he's side by side with Chris Dollerton. That's a battle for 7th. And if they continue to battle, Zach Rogers might get into this group. Benny Watson, Kyle Matthews as well. Sebastian Kukulon right in this group. Same for Levi McIntyre. Matt McIntyre, who got a little bit of the wreck back on lap 15. He's up here inside the top 15 right now. Continues to finish well. Had a 42-point lead between himself, Benjamin Miles, and Carter Friesen coming to this one. Now Friesen currently would be cutting into that as he's up in the 3rd spot. But still, a very consistent run for that 7 car out of Michael Norman Motorsports. And I keep wanting to jump back up here to the race lead because I know there's still a second difference between Trey Wright and Matthew Rodriguez, but Matt Rod is closing. He's still running in the 32nd lap times, 31.973 that last time by. Trey Wright still now in the 32s, this time by 32.168. Matt Rod 32.039, and now only 9/10 separation. And the thing that's going to be interesting about this too, you can see there's quite a big gap from these two back to this battle for 3rd. However, if these two get themselves side-by-side racing for a little while, it could bring 3rd place on back into this conversation again. And of course, there's still the question of fuel. These drivers all came to pit road back on lap 16, which means they will have had to have gone a total of 37 laps on fuel. Can they make that distance? We're closing in on 10 laps to go, so we will see if these drivers can make it on fuel, or will there be someone that's going to stretch it on fuel strategy to try and pick up a victory. Right now, though, it's going to come down to who has the best race car, and I think the clear-cut case at this moment is Matthew Rodriguez has the better race car than Trey Wright. They've got over a 5-second gap back to 3rd place, so they can battle with each other for a little bit and not suffer any consequences. But I think if you're Matthew Rodriguez right now, you want to get around that 28 as soon as possible. Because if you can get around Trey Wright, then you set the tone if you're trying to save fuel. plus the fact you then open up a pretty big gap, and all that's out the window. The caution is out. Saw smoke in turn 1, and just like that, all of the speculation is completely thrown out the window. And I think the last person that wanted to see that caution flag was Matthew Rodriguez. Well, we'll get a question answered for sure of who was going to be able to make it on fuel, because if these drivers hit pit road here, we probably were going to be in for a fuel strategy race. If they stay out, then more than likely they were going to be good to go the rest of the way on fuel, and it was really going to come down between Trey Wright and Matthew Rodriguez as to who had the better car. And this now brings Carter Friesen, Wyatt Quayle, Johnny Gardner, Cody Lamas, Zach Rogers, all these guys back into the conversation for this race win. It's like Cody Lamas is going to pit. Now this is interesting. Lamas is in. I think Benny Watson indicated he was coming to pit road as well. So is Levi McIntyre. Apparently they feel that these drivers can't make it. Austin LaPlante, last year's winner, he knows something apparently. Michael Norman, Ryan Acosta, Benjamin Miles, they all hit pit road. So apparently they want to make sure they can make it on fuel. All these others must assume they can save enough under pacing to make it to the checkered flag. So this is going to be really interesting now, as giving up valuable track position as well were Benny Watson and others. So we're going to wait and see what happens for the end result. For now, let's go back and see what brought out the caution for the second time here today at New Hampshire. We talked about it at the top of the show. Kyle Matthews needed a good run outside the top 30 in the point standings. Well, doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. The pole sitter was running in the 11th position at the time. Actually, 13th was where he crossed the line that last time by. He was trying to give room to Matt McIntyre and crowd Sebastian Kukulon, who's on its outside, into the wall. The both of them are going to go around. Fortunately, I believe they both stayed up at the top side of the racetrack, so nobody else got involved, but that loses Kyle Matthews a whole lot of track position. That's also a tough break for Sebastian Kukulon, who came into this race in a three-way tie for the rookie points lead with Derek Hamill and Cody Lamas. And you can see right there, I think he was obviously showing his displeasure, not allowing Kyle Matthews to drive away without a shot to the left rear quarter panel. So that is what brings out the caution for the second time today, completely jumbles all this up, and makes it a very interesting fuel type race here in the closing stages of this race. One lap to green, it will be a single file restart, so lap cars, slower cars will not come into play. I believe the top 8 are separated by a lap machine. That is Marcus Sacchi in the 21. Trey Wright the leader. Second is Matthew Rodriguez. Third place is Carter Friesen with Wyatt Quayle and Johnny Gardner, your top 5. Zach Rogers, Alexander Rowe, Chris Dallerton, Matt McIntyre, and Jack Mitchell are your top 10. But if these drivers cannot make it on fuel, the driver right now that is in the catbird seat is Benny Watson. He'll restart in 18th. He was the first of the drivers to hit pit road. He actually got out ahead of Cody Lamas, who was the first driver to hit pit lane there under this caution. So right now, Watson would be in the catbird seat if the 17 cars ahead of him that stayed out are not able to make it on fuel in the closing stages of this race. I also noticed via that replay of Kukulon and Kyle Matthews that David Schildhause's face is plastered all over turn 1, but I digress. We know Matthew Rodriguez had a stronger car than Trey Wright on the long run. What about here on the short run? Green flag in the air with 7 laps to go at New Hampshire. And who's got the fuel to make it? Best battle's going to be for 4th. Gardner to the inside of Wyatt Quayle. That's Matthew Rodriguez hounding Trey Wright. Here he comes for the race lead, and Trey Wright's out of fuel! Right in front of the field! Oh, look out. Hopefully they don't wreck him. He gets to the bottom. He's going to make it to pit road, but he's out of fuel, and here comes everybody else. Matt Rod is in, and the caution flag is out. Caution's out again. We may get back green. There's Benny Watson trying to get by these guys. He crossed the line in 5th. I think these guys could be out of fuel. There's Wyatt Quayle in the 41. He inherits the race lead. They all stacked up. Probably people running out of fuel out of turn 2. Ryan Butcher sitting on the back straightaway. This is not going to be good. Okay, there we go. He teleports to pit road. I honestly think this is going to be Benny Watson's race to lose. I think that the strategy call is going to be what wins him this race. Now, Wyatt Quayle, Mitchell Collins, Vince Almriego, Jack Mitchell, they are still yet to come to pit road. Will they pit here under this yellow? Yes, they will. Wait a minute. Is Benny Watson pitting? I don't know why he would pit, but he is going to pit. I thought he was in pit road already, but I guess not. Maybe they didn't get that thing full. Matt Haas is in as well. That turns the race lead over to the 99 of Levi McIntyre. Huh. I'm really surprised the 75 came to pit road. I thought with him pitting under that last caution, he would have been good to go. Maybe they had an issue. I don't know. Maybe that's why he got out ahead of Cody Lamas. Maybe they couldn't get the fuel tank engaged or something. Because I was actually surprised that Cody did not come out with pit road first of those that came to pit lane under the last caution. So it will be Levi McIntyre, the race leader, when we go back green. Ryan Brommer second. Cody Lamas third. Look who's going to be in fourth. The defending winner, LaPlante. And it looks like Ryan Acosta will be in fifth. But we are under caution for the third time today. We will get back green. Let's see what happened. I'm assuming it was drivers wrecking after they were running out of fuel. Well, we saw it up near the front with then race leader Trey Wright, and it was all the way through the field. Ryan Butcher here out of fuel. And he's trying to get himself to the inside line. He's stuck in the middle. Ryan Acosta is going to get him in the left rear quarter panel, turns him down the racetrack. And I don't know who it is that gives him a shot. It might be Jose Mills right here in the 98. Oh, yep, right there. If the 78 had not gotten spun, I think we still would have remained green. I think it was just that a car was spun around because everybody else was doing a pretty good job getting themselves to pit road. And then Ryan Butcher, because all that momentum was slowed with him spinning out, he just couldn't get the car refired, and he was, as we saw, sitting on the back straightaway. So a tough break there for the 78 car. That'll obviously lose him a number of laps too, having to teleport to pit road, and more damage on Jose Mills in that 98 machine, as we are under the caution for what hopefully is the final time today. It's our third time under yellow, and let's see if Levi McIntyre now can close this thing out. We never talked about him all day, and all of a sudden he's up there at the front with a chance of picking up what would actually be his first career win. And the reason I said it like that, for those of you that didn't tune in to last season, Levi McIntyre, especially during the second half of the regular season, really hit a hot streak. He was consistent every single week. He actually won the regular season championship. He was the points leader when the regular season came to an end, but he did not battle for the championship. Why? Because he did not find victory lane. So Levi McIntyre is still chasing his first Duracell Cup Series victory, and it could very well take place here at New Hampshire off of pit strategy. We're going to have to wait and see if that will be the end result. He'll restart ahead of Ryan Brommer, our Sonoma winner. Cody Lamas in third. Austin LaPlante trying to go 2 for 2 here at New Hampshire. He's fourth. Ryan Acosta trying to get his season turned back around after having a great first half of the regular season. He's fifth. Sixth is Derek Hamill. Seventh, Michael Norman. Eighth is Benjamin Miles with Cole Baker and James Qualls, your top 10. The top 10 has completely changed. I think the only driver that I can see that has been up here in the top 10, but previously here today, was Cody Lamas. Everybody else, they haven't been up in the top 10 at all yet. And now, they've got a shot at a top 10, maybe a race victory, depending on what happens here in the final 2 laps of this race. It will be a green-white checkered. Levi McIntyre's just got to hold off these guys for 2 laps, 8 corners, and he may pick up a victory, which would end up being our 9th different race winner on the season to get their first career victory. The most latest, Matt Haas, last week at Chicago Motor Speedway. He would join Cole Baker, Michael Norman, Alexander Rowe, Matt McIntyre, Dylan Young, Benjamin Miles, Johnny Gardner, and Matt Haas as a first career winner here in the Duracell Cup Series. But he's got drivers behind him that want to spoil it. Let's see what's going to happen here as the green flag's in the air at New Hampshire. Levi's got to make that car high, wide, and handsome. Well, actually not high. He does not want to run the high line, I don't think. Doesn't want to open the door down low for Ryan Brommer. Got a nice exit off there for turn 2. Opened the gap a bit between himself and Brommer. And what McIntyre hopes right now is that Cody Lamas will start going for second off of Ryan Brommer, and that will take the pressure off Levi McIntyre. Half a car length separation. White flag in the air. One more lap to go. Levi McIntyre running the Avengers Endgame scheme. Will he bring an end to his winless streak? Which right now, coming into this race, has been 55 Duracell Cup Series races. Cody Lamas side by side for second with Ryan Brommer. McIntyre's got 2 more corners to go. How about this? 9th driver to get his first career Duracell Cup Series victory. McIntyre finally snaps the winless streak. He'll get the victory here today at New Hampshire. And we never talked about McIntyre until the closing stages of this race. How about that? Levi McIntyre came into this race 27th in the point standings. Believe it or not, this is his first top 5 on the year. He had 4 top 10s coming to this race, but did not finish in the top 5 until today. And his first top 5 of Season 2 is a trip to victory lane. So now for that team, it's going to be all about the consistent finishes to try and get into the top 30 in points and stay there. Well, he's already in the top 30 in points, but to remain in the top 30 in points, I should say. And how about that? Levi McIntyre, last year's regular season champion, finally gets his first Duracell Cup Series victory. And it all came down to the timing of a yellow flag right near the time when drivers would have to think about making green flag pit stops. Imagine if that caution hadn't come out. We then had another caution with drivers that decided to stay out, but then they ran out of fuel when we went back green. And Levi McIntyre was, I believe, one of those drivers that came to pit road under our second caution. That's what had him have enough fuel to be able to make it the rest of the way and eventually pick up the victory. Ryan Brommer's going to bring it home in second place. So a great run for our Sonoma winner as he's still up inside the top 15 in points. Try to get himself a playoff spot. Cody Lamas will bring it home in third. Derek Hamill will finish in fourth. So very close battle there for rookie of the race, but Lamas just barely edges Hamill for that spot. Derek Hamill, correct me if I'm wrong, was actually caught up in our first caution when he got spun by Jordan Lopez. So a nice comeback for him. Austin LaPlante obviously loves this track here in his home track for his home track, as he finished with a win last year and a 5th place here this season. His teammate Benjamin Miles right behind him in 6th. Benjamin Miles, boy, someone got a bucket of cold water because this car is hot, hot, hot. You got Ryan Acosta there in 7th. Carson Gum finally makes an appearance back in the top 10 and 8th. Michael Norman, well-needed run for him. 26th in the points coming into this race after he dropped a couple spots last week at Chicago. He'll get 9th place, and Cole Baker going to bring it home in the 10th position. So our Daytona 500 winner keeps his consistent finishes happening. James Qualls, there's another driver we didn't talk about all day. He pops up for an 11th place run. Sebastian Kukulon, who got involved in a wreck with Kyle Matthews for our second caution of the day, he finishes 12th with Matthews in 14th. So talk about making the best of a bad situation. Jack Mitchell right between the two of them in 13th, and Jesse Turner finishes out the day in the 15th position. Look on down through the remainder of the finishing results, and there's a couple of names that really stand out to me. Matthew Rodriguez, who spent a good portion of this race in the 2nd spot, was actually running down Trey Wright for the race lead. He's going to finish in 21st. Trey Wright, who dominated the first half of this race, finishes just barely on the lead lap in 29th. Matt McIntyre, he faded back to 30th, and Benny Watson. I thought Benny Watson, that this was his race to lose. I thought he was the one that was going to cycle around to the race lead when everybody else was dropping like flies with the empty fuel tanks. But Watson, apparently there was something that we didn't know about that happened on his pit stop. He had to come back down pit road, and he finishes the day out in the 31st position. So obviously not the run he was looking for. Also, what happened to Alexander Rowe? he was up there in the top 10. He finishes in 32nd, and Alexander Rowe is still trying to get himself into the top 30 in points. This is not going to help his case. He was the last car to finish on the lead lap. Seth Cole, Marcus Sacchi, William Brock, Mitchell Collins, Casey Nanico, they all finished one lap down, and out of the race were the cars of Ryan Butcher, Jose Mills, and Adam Garcia. I'd be a little bit worried if I were Jose Mills, because Mills jumped up into the top 30 in points with a second place run last week to 28th. This 39th place finish could send him back down outside the top 30 in the points. So obviously we're going to have to wait and see if that's going to be the end result. But Levi McIntyre, 9 drivers this season have gotten their first Duracell Cup Series victory of their career. McIntyre, the latest of those, and now has Levi McIntyre made it into his first playoff spot in the Duracell Cup Series. Only time will tell. We've only got 7 more races here for the regular season, and next week, talk about a wild card track. We're going back to Bristol, but we're going to Bristol Dirt. That's going to be a wild one. Michael Norman trying to make it 3 for 3 at the dirt tracks we've been to this season. Already 2 for 2, winning at Springfield and Fuel Motorsports Park. But until then, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching Production News Ray. We will now show you your full finishing results, your overall point standings, and we will see you guys next week as Fuel Strategy gets Levi McIntyre the win here at New Hampshire. You've been watching a Production NNSCRA offline racing at its best. I butchered my outro, I think, didn't I? Yep. Bye!